Back. Author and law professor Michael Higginbotham was hearing it everywhere. We are living in a post-racial America, a land where race no longer mattered and classism was the ultimate battle. But much of history, as well as Higginbotham's own upbringing, proved different. Now, with his newest book, Ghost of Jim Crow, Ending Racism in Post-Racial America, he looks to offer solutions to the real racial disparities that continue to exist. University of Baltimore School of Law professor F. Michael Higginbotham joins us now in the studio. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Michael, your book, Ghost of Jim Crow, has garnered lots of attention, reflection, and praise. I want to ask you why you wrote the book, but first, for those that don't know, who or what is Jim Crow?
Well, Jim Crow was a minstrel character created by Thomas Dartmouth Rice back in 1820. And it was based on a fellow in Kentucky, a slave that worked on a horse farm in Kentucky. He was physically handicapped, and Thomas Rice went and saw him performing as he cleaned up the stables, performing a routine. Thomas Rice created a song and dance and became a very famous entertainer back in the 20s, where he would dress up in whiteface and blackface, change up, and in fact make fun of blacks.
And Jim Crow came to personify something even larger.
Jim Crow came to personify racial segregation laws in America, separating the races. And no one knows how the term got coined, but ever since like 1840, racial segregation laws were referred to as Jim Crow laws, based upon the character created by Thomas Rice.
Jumpin' Jim Crow, I think, was one of the lines from the song.
Jump Jim Crow was the famous lyric from it. Wheel about, turn about, and do just so. Every time I wheel about, I jump Jim Crow.
Okay, that's a quick history lesson before we get into the book. Why did you write the book, Ghost of Jim Crow?
I wrote the book because for many decades, and particularly over the last 6 years since Barack Obama was elected president, many Americans suggested that we were in a post-racial era, that race no longer was significant in opportunities afforded or in hardships endured. My life, the lives of many minorities, and what I was witnessing going on in America today refuted that premise. And so I wrote the book as a response to those individuals who think we're there. We're not there yet. We've made tremendous progress, but we still have a ways to go.
And from your observation, you're saying, and it's pretty obvious, that there are some key racial issues that still are faced today. Outline some of what you see.
Since the book came out, it seems like every week there's a new racial incident, a new ghost of Jim Crow that comes up. I think Donald Sterling and Clive Davis are the most recent ghosts of Jim Crow. But I think there are 5 areas today that we need to focus on. Economics, education, housing, criminal justice, and politics. And if you look at those areas, there are really hot issues going on today. Voter ID laws, inequitable funding of our public schools, and tracking, and of course racial profiling and stop and frisk in the criminal justice system.
Now, you were raised in Beverly Hills, graduated from Ivy League schools. People might say, well, gee, you had the best of everything and, great opportunity, but what was your experience growing up in those predominantly white environments, and what did you learn from that experience?
Sure. I was interviewed by a Baltimore Sun reporter about 20 years ago, and he said, you grew up in Beverly Hills in Shaker Heights, Ohio. You must have had a wonderful life. And I kind of had a moment of reflection, like a Jimmy Stewart movie, It's a Wonderful Life, and I thought about it, and I did. I had a wonderful life. But the fact that I grew up in exclusive neighborhoods with good schools and services and wonderful parties doesn't equate with the absence of racism. So while I had a wonderful life, I did experience tremendous racism as well. First time I was in Beverly Hills, on the first day, I was racially profiled, and a curfew was put on me. So
what happened?
I was stopped on my bicycle, went to investigate the neighborhood, stopped on my bicycle, and police officers, after they questioned me for about 5 minutes and were comfortable that I actually lived in the neighborhood, they said, there's a curfew in Beverly Hills, and welcome to Beverly Hills, but don't be out after dark without any adult supervision. Next week, I went to a party and started to get dark, and I said, hey, I gotta go. And the white kid said, why you gotta leave? And they had lived in Beverly Hills all their lives. I said, because of the curfew. And they said, what curfew? So that was my kind of welcome to Beverly Hills moment. And I also talk about in the book, you know, you've heard about driving while black. I was threatened by the police for smiling while black. And so my experience growing up in these neighborhoods, while a good one, didn't equate with the absence of racism.
So there are small indignities and there are big issues that impact everyone. It runs the gamut.
It surely does, and I think that's what we need to deal with today. We have made tremendous progress in eliminating, you know, Jim Crow segregation and in passing anti-discrimination laws and implementing affirmative action and even electing and re-electing our first black president. Progress doesn't mean post-racial, though. We've got some huge issues today. Some of it is subtle. You know, we've eliminated the laws that specifically discriminate on the basis of race, but we allow subtle discrimination to take place continuing today, and we've got to address that.
You have been involved in politics. I know that you were involved with your uncle and putting together the Constitution in South Africa. As you observe what's happening to President Barack Obama, what's your interpretation of the way he's been treated?
I think it's really sad. My dad and uncle were Tuskegee Airmen, and one of the things, you know, the Black Air Force back in World War II, one of the things that they were so upset about was not being saluted by whites who were required to recognize their stature and office. And I think that's what's going on with the presidency. It's sad, but when you look at a congressman who stands up at the State of the Union and says to the president, you lie, that's unheard of. And I agree with President Jimmy Carter, former President Jimmy Carter, who said part of this opposition, not all of it, but part of the treatment of the president has to do with race. And I think that's a sad statement of our democracy today.
Do you think that we ever will develop into a post-racial society in America?
I'm an eternal optimist. I still believe in Dr. King's dream, and I think that we will. I think racism is something that you're not born with, but that you learn. And unfortunately, too many of us are still learning racial separation and discrimination. But I do believe the law is a very powerful weapon, and I think that if we change our laws, we can change the hearts and minds of all Americans to eventually get to a post-racial society. And
that's a good note on which to end. Thanks for coming today. Everyone, the book is called Ghosts of Jim Crow, Ending Racism in Post-Racial America by F. Michael Higginbotham, and it's available now. And you can learn more about everyone that we featured on today's program and to download an NAACP tip sheet on what to do if you're stopped by the police by logging on to our webpage at WCVB.com. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Have a great rest of your day and take care.